while Lennart van Eetvelt, the young lotto rider whose own team suspected him of doping during the year 2023, won on the hardest summit of the Chinese Tour of Guangxi. Several of his rivals, like the newly minted Frenchman Pavel Sivakov, who only a few days ago was flying at Il Lombardia, well, he arrived at the finish line absolutely exhausted, with no strength in his legs. And he wasn't the only one. We can also include the promising young Frenchman, Tramadol Baudin, a cyclist caught with tramadol, but who, unlike Tramadolito Quintana, was not pursued mercilessly by Selfie-Le-Patient's UCI. However, for today's protagonist, we have to look beyond these riders. We have to put the spotlight on one of the best-paid cyclists in the world, the White Kenyan, Chris Froome. After crawling throughout the year in several races such as the Tour of Cebu in Romania, the Tour of Rwanda, or the Arctic Race of Norway, now it's his turn to crawl through this Tour of Guangxi in China, where he's classified with only one day to go at 105 out of 117. 32 minutes and 33 seconds behind the new, suspicious Belgian leader. It's the umpteenth example of ridiculousness on the bike since the White Kenyan mysteriously stopped winning after his historic display at Finestre in 2018 when he attacked with 80 kilometers to go, a feat which today the new aliens and anchovies and children of pigeon pie eaters who turn up in Lamborghinis as spectators at cyclocross races, well, they perform that kind of feat whilst whistling merry tunes. In 2018, Froome's move was seen as doing a Landis. But today, these long-distance, far-out attacks, they've become normalised. Just as the average fan has already normalised that Froome is a mascot, a meme on a bike, one who's taking €2 million this year for 0 UCI points. A mascot who's getting unhooked, even in breakaways, where he tries to make a difference, as happened to him on stage 2 of this Tour de Guangxi, arguably his best performance of the season. He's a figure who's making people increasingly uncomfortable, not only Sylvan Adams, but the cycling world in general. If years ago photographs were taken with the new big stars of the peloton, well, now nobody mentions him at all, despite having 7 Grand Tours in his palmares. Let's remember that, as of today, Froome still has one more Tour de France in his trophy cabinet than Pogacar, and he's the only active cyclist who's the winner of 3 Grand Tours on the calendar. It seems as if these new superstars include Froome in that doping-filled cycling past that they so often mention and claim not to be a part of. And while years ago he was featured in videos, even on his own YouTube channel, now no one mentions him at all. Fortunately, dear old Froome, here at Cycling Highlights, we will always remember you. Now, dear viewer, follow us on our personal Twitter, @UncleCycling, for more news, and also make sure you subscribe to this humble channel for more cycling content. Now, let's continue analysing the Froome enigma. A few days ago, it was the historical Danish doper himself, because he's always a Dane, the chicken, Rasmussen, who assured the media that Chris Froome signing for that Jewish professional team was undoubtedly the worst signing in the history of cycling. I mean, even worse than his own signing for Christina Watches after his doping sanction, where he achieved some top 10 finishes in some minor European competitions. If we think about it coldly, he's not wrong. During his first 3 seasons, Chris Froome has earned €16.5 million in exchange for 66 UCI points, and most of them obtained thanks to a 3rd place in a breakaway in the Alpe d'Huez stage in the middle of the Tour de France. This year, the husband of the well-known Islamophobe Michel Froome has earned €2 million in exchange for an impressive 0 UCI points. And in 2025, he will still be pedalling for the team that tested bikes with engines in Tenerife in exchange for €1 million more. In total, almost €20 million in exchange for exposure in Tour de France criteriums, advertising and promoting traditional Hebrew food, and being the star of commercials inviting you to visit a country at war. It's absolutely insane. And although Sylvan Adams thinks he knows a lot about cycling for being a world champion in his age group and creating many velodromes to help young people halfway around the world, he hasn't the faintest idea of how this sport works. As you can see, he's just renewed the contract of another pensioner, Michele Ferrari's former client, also a Dane. Because yes, friends, today, you lucky people, we have a double Danish ration. It's Jakob Fuglsang, of the same age as Froome, a man who even achieved some minor victories for the team during his first season with the Jewish outfit. But a man who has spent 2 years with less than 200 UCI points in each campaign. A far cry from his time as an all-rounder cyclist, capable of winning 2 monuments thanks to the powers of Dr. Mito. Despite all this data, the Israel team has had an absolutely impressive season with 29 victories, 8 of them at World Tour level, with strange riders like the hilarious Derek G, who went from total unknown to Giro d'Italia sensation, only to disappear and then come back this year, giving us 2 hilarious months with a podium at the Dauphiné and a top 10 in the Tour de France. There's also the very slim Stephen Williams, who's won in the same season the Tour of his country, the Tour Down Under in Australia, and the Flèche Wallonne, an unrepeatable year for him perhaps. And then there's the young promise, Joseph Blackmore, achieving victories on general classifications and especially winning the Tour de l'Avenir ahead of 2 authentic generational beasts like Pablo Torres and Jano Vidar. Sylvan Adams' team has perfected its machinery to the extent that even young Hebrew promises like Oded Kogut have already achieved victories on the European calendar, and men like the New Zealander Corbin Strong have consolidated their position with important victories at the end of the season. They've gone from being a pro-continental team without too many good results to becoming a fully consolidated member of the World Tour and placing in the top 10 of the team rankings, surpassing historical teams like Benesto or Orica or FDJ. Imagine what they would have been able to do if they had not squandered 20 million euros on Chris Froome. A team with the best possible facilities. A team with an economic magnate of the same level as the sheikhs of UAE Team Emirates. And a team with political interests encouraging them to whiten the image of a country at war. Oh, I shudder just thinking about it, as Adams must shudder every time payday comes around for the white Kenyan. Now, dear viewers, do you agree with the chicken? Do you also think that Chris Froome is the worst signing in the history of professional cycling? Let us know in the comments. Oh, and also, check out the video on the screen. You will love it.